you ready for the truth?
Bring it on.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Do you want the whole truth?
I don't think you're ready.
Governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people.
It's Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Here comes truth.
Well, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. We're glad you're here, right here on the AFR Talk Network. I'm Crane Durham. This is Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. And if you've been on the Facebook today and nothingbuttruth.com, you see we're engaged in the issue and the top story in the land, which is the reaction to the George Zimmerman verdict, the verdict being not guilty of second-degree murder and manslaughter, and the fallout from that. A lot of commentators and on the left seeing it through a racial lens. Those, and generally speaking, on the right, conservatives see it through an evidence lens. And certainly you're going to have very different directions those two arguments go. But to address that, we're going to be speaking to Bruce Thornton. He is not only an author, but a professor and historian. And he wrote a great piece today that I posted on the Facebook page, Race Industry Leeches. And we'll take a good look at that and go through it. We'll also be hitting the concerns over the Muslim Brotherhood, the interim Egyptian government, and the future of freedom and democracy in Egypt. Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu making a statement on Face the Nation this past weekend to Bob Schieffer about the Iranian nuclear program and the new Iranian president, how he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. We'll bring you an update on that story and another story dealing with the UN relating to Israel. That ahead. The Farm Bill. What is it? Why was it split? And just because they took the food stamps and split it out of the bill, does that mean it's a good bill? And how does it impact you and me and our food prices? Well, Pete Sepp will be with us from the National Taxpayers Union to discuss that, amnesty, and a whole lot more when it comes to the economy. Oh, yes, Obamacare. But first, why don't we go to Charlie Rangel and Martin Bashir on MSNBC discussing the Zimmerman case and responding to Zimmerman's lawyer, Mark O'Mara, commenting on if Zimmerman were black, how things would have been very different. Roll it.
I think that the things would have been different if George Zimmerman was black for this reason. He never would have been charged with a crime. What happened was this became a focus for a civil rights event, which again is a wonderful event to have. But they decided that George Zimmerman would be the person who they were to blame and sort of use as the creation of a civil rights violation, none of which was borne out by the facts.
If he had been black, Zimmerman would not have been charged with a crime. Can you control your own laughter at that statement?
No, I think it's possible. If the police had got a black Zimmerman, the question would be whether they would have beat him to death and then threw handcuffs on him and dragged him into the precinct.
The underlying assumption is that if you're black, police want to beat you. That's what they are saying. But I'll allow Representative Charlie Rangel from New York to continue. Roll it.
Zimmerman was treated from the beginning, and the testimony that came from the arresting officers was that he was the victim. And so the whole idea of a black perpetrator under that surrounding, I am really amazed. One, that defense counsel didn't say how sad he was that his client had taken away a young man's life. And two, in not understanding that the difference between a black being charged with murder and a Zimmerman almost getting accolades for his suspicions.
From Bruce Thornton, our guest, on the flip side of the break. This is just a quick paragraph of what he wrote today, and I think it applies to what Charlie Rangel, Representative Charlie Rangel, and host Martin Bashir of MSNBC have alluded to. Indeed, the specter of a DOJ trial is just the latest in a series of events, from the Duke lacrosse team prosecution to Holder's abuse of the Voting Rights Act, that demonstrates the mendacious, hypocritical, racial ideology that permeates our politics and institutions. The central theme of this narrative is the endemic, eternal white racism that accounts for every dysfunction in the black community. No amount of progress, from the remarkable expansion of the black middle class to the utter discrediting of old school racists like the KKK, can alter this narrative, for the simple reason that a significant number of black politicians, professors, federal and state employees, and activists gain power and money by exploiting the racist meme. So I think that hits it. And it's something that we've covered on the Facebook a fair amount, and also on Nothing But Truth with the articles and even with the questions on nothingbutTruth.com. And what gets me is every time we shift away from the evidence and make it to race, we start with what he referred to as the baked-in narrative when we come to a discussion anytime on race. One, cops are racist. Two, or you can start out, whites are racist generally, a racial ideology that is the paradigm on how we evaluate race relations in this country, and for that matter, justice. Never mind we're creating words like white Hispanic. Never mind the evidence that was not there to move forward until the federal government and the Department of Justice put pressure on. Never mind that we leave out that however it happened, George Zimmerman suffered a broken nose and was being beaten MMA style before he shot Trayvon Martin. Now, there's another side to this, and I worked on getting this author on, and we will bring him on if we can get him. But he did write an article, and I will post it a little later, talking about framing the narrative of Trayvon Martin and some of the things that he did a very good job as a journalist. He's a conservative journalist, pointing out that, hey, those of you and those people who may agree with the verdict wasn't out at that particular time, but we're considering the case and George Zimmerman's innocence in relation to this incident and these charges, don't pile on or take evidence that is hearsay. And I felt it to be really well written, and again, working on that guest, posting it on the Facebook a little later. The reason I bring that up is because there's a danger here. And the danger is that good people, left, right, black, white, good people, good Americans, red blood in our veins, liberal, conservative, conservative, liberal might be, are getting caught up in an environment that's created by racial hustlers and mainstream media news reports that were not honest and lied by omission, that continue, by the way. And also a political environment highlighted here by our next guest about our own Department of Justice, which abandoned its race-neutral policy, meaning we have a racist DOJ. And it's not in the traditional frame of racism, black, white on black. So let's not do that. Brain Durham's Nothing But Truth. AFR Talk.